Your father revealed a shocking family secret, that your mother cheated, and you are not his daughter.
Love, loyalty, and betrayal. 3 words that can tear lives apart when mixed together. For years, this case has haunted everyone who watched it, because it's not just about a child. It's about trust destroyed by those closest to you. Miss Wilson came to court with a trembling voice and a broken heart. She wasn't just fighting for answers, she was fighting for her dignity. Her ex, Mr. Hogan, sat across from her, jaw tight, eyes cold. Once teammates, now bitter enemies. And in the middle of it all, a little boy who deserved the truth. Miss Wilson began with shaking hands, her voice cracking. "Your Honor, I just want to know who my baby's father is. I'm not proud of what happened. I just need closure." The judge nodded gently. "Tell me what happened, Miss Wilson." She took a deep breath. "It started with love and lies. Years ago, Miss Wilson was dating Mr. Hogan, a young athlete full of promise. He was charming, funny, and ambitious, the kind of man who could make any woman believe in forever. They met through friends, started dating, and quickly became inseparable. But when success came knocking for Mr. Hogan, practices, games, parties, everything changed. He started staying out late, not answering calls, coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. She said he started treating me like a stranger. I'd ask questions and he'd say I was insecure. One night, after another argument, she packed her things and left. For weeks they didn't talk. But then, in that lonely space, something happened she didn't expect. She found comfort in one of his closest friends. Yes, his teammate. His name was Andre. He was kind, calm, and actually listened. She said, "I was heartbroken. He was there for me. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did." They spent a night together, and though it was filled with guilt, she admitted it brought her a strange peace. "I didn't plan it," she said, eyes full of regret. "But at that time, I just wanted to feel loved." A month later, she found out she was pregnant. At first, she was overjoyed. She thought maybe this baby could bring hope back into her life, a new beginning. But when the math started to blur, the dates, the timing, the memories, fear crept in. She whispered, "I didn't know which one was the father." When she told Mr. Hogan, he was furious. He accused her of betrayal, called her names, said she'd ruined his life and career. He said, "You slept with my teammate." The courtroom gasped when the clip played of that old confrontation. It wasn't just anger, it was humiliation. Mr. Hogan shouted, "You made me a joke in the locker room." Miss Wilson broke down in tears. "It wasn't like that. You weren't there for me. I was broken." He fired back, "So you slept with my best friend to get even." She whispered, "No, I just needed someone." And that's when the judge said softly, "Sometimes loneliness can make people do things even love can't explain." The child, little Isaiah, was born months later. He had bright eyes, curly hair, and the same smile as Mr. Hogan, or so everyone thought. For 2 years, Mr. Hogan believed Isaiah was his son. He posted pictures, came to games holding the baby, told everyone, "That's my boy." Even Andre, the teammate, used to come around, playing with Isaiah, holding him, laughing. But behind those smiles, guilt was eating everyone alive. Because the truth had never been spoken aloud. One day, Andre came to visit. As he lifted the baby, Mr. Hogan noticed something strange. He stared at Isaiah, then at Andre, the same dimples, the same eyes. He said quietly, "Man, y'all look alike." Andre laughed it off, but Mr. Hogan couldn't unsee it. That night, he confronted Miss Wilson. He asked, "You ever sleep with him?" She froze. Her silence said everything. From that night, their world collapsed. Mr. Hogan walked out, not just on her, but on the baby too. He said, "If he's not mine, I can't do this." And for years he stayed away. Miss Wilson raised Isaiah alone, always wondering, always hoping that one day the truth would come out. When she finally brought the case to court, Isaiah was already 5 years old. He had started asking questions. "Mama, where's Daddy? Why doesn't he come see me?" She said it broke me every time he asked that. So she came to court not for drama, but for her son. To give him a name, a truth, and a father, whoever that might be. In court, Mr. Hogan admitted the pain went deeper than betrayal. "It wasn't just about her," he said. "It was about him, my friend. We trained together, ate together. He knew I loved her." He turned to Miss Wilson. "You could have told me the truth. Instead, I found out from whispers and looks in the locker room." Miss Wilson cried. "I didn't know how to. I was scared. You were angry all the time. I didn't want you to hate me." He replied, "I already did." The judge raised her hand. "Let's take a breath. This is bigger than blame now. There's a child involved, a child who didn't ask for any of this." Then came the moment everyone had waited for. The DNA results. 3 lives, maybe 4, about to change with one sheet of paper. The judge opened the envelope slowly. The air thickened. Miss Wilson's hands shook as she grabbed her son's photo, whispering a prayer. The judge began reading. In the case of Wilson versus Hogan, when it comes to 5-year-old Isaiah Wilson, the room went silent. "It has been determined by this court that Mr. Hogan, you are not the father." Miss Wilson gasped, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Hogan's jaw clenched, but his eyes betrayed the heartbreak he tried to hide. He whispered, "I knew it." Then louder, "You played both of us." The judge interrupted, "Mr. Hogan, please, I know this hurts, but we need to stay respectful." He nodded, eyes full of pain. "I'm done, Your Honor. I gave her my love, my time, my name for nothing." Miss Wilson sobbed. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." And then the judge turned to her. "Miss Wilson, the only thing left now is to find out if Andre, his teammate, is the biological father." The camera cut to Andre, sitting in the witness seat, head down, avoiding everyone's eyes. He looked ashamed but also scared. When asked, Andre admitted it. "Yes, Your Honor, I slept with her. It was one time. I knew it was wrong." He turned to Mr. Hogan and said, "I'm sorry, man. I never meant to hurt you." Mr. Hogan stared back in disbelief. "You were my brother, my teammate, and you went behind my back." Andre looked down. "I was weak, she was hurting, I thought I was helping." The courtroom could feel the weight of betrayal pressing in the air. It wasn't just a love triangle anymore. It was a story of broken trust between 2 men who once had each other's backs. Miss Wilson cried harder. "I've destroyed everything, haven't I?" The judge sighed softly. "You've made mistakes, yes, but what destroys people isn't always what they do, it's what they hide, and you've hidden this for 5 years." The tension was unbearable. Andre asked for a moment to speak. He turned to Mr. Hogan again, voice trembling. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to take responsibility if he's mine. I'll be there for the boy." For the first time, Miss Wilson smiled faintly, not from happiness but from hope. The judge nodded. "Then we'll get you both tested." And as the session closed, you could see on every face the same question. What will the truth reveal this time? The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of papers rustling, as the judge prepared for the second test. This time, everyone's eyes were on Andre, the man who had once been trusted like a brother. He sat still, shoulders heavy, hands clasped. The guilt on his face said more than words ever could. Miss Wilson avoided his eyes. She looked tired, as if 5 years of secrets had finally caught up to her. Mr. Hogan leaned back in his chair, arms folded. His jaw was tight, but behind that anger was heartbreak that no one could miss. He had lost his woman, his best friend, and now even the son he thought was his. The judge spoke softly. "Mr. Andre, this test isn't about punishing anyone. It's about giving the child a name and the truth he deserves." Andre nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, I understand." His voice trembled slightly, but there was conviction there. A man ready to face what he'd been running from. The story behind Andre and Miss Wilson's one night together wasn't glamorous. There was no romance, no candlelight, no promises. Just two broken people trying to fill the empty spaces inside them. She said, "I was hurt. He was kind, that's all it was." And he admitted, "I should have walked away, but I didn't." They both had lived in regret since that night. Andre had even transferred to another team, just to escape the whispers and stares. But guilt is something you can't run from. It follows you, even in the silence of success. When the DNA test finally happened, Andre said something that silenced everyone. "If he's mine," he said, "then I'll do everything I can to make it right. But if he's not, I'll still be there because he's innocent. None of this is his fault." Those words shifted something in the room. Even Mr. Hogan looked at him differently, not with forgiveness yet, but with recognition. Because deep down, they both knew that the child was the only one who mattered now. Days later, when the results were ready, Miss Wilson couldn't sleep. She stared at Isaiah's face and whispered, "Soon you'll know, baby. Soon we'll both know." She prayed not for a specific result, but for peace. Because whichever way it went, someone's life would change forever. When they returned to court, the atmosphere felt heavy again. The judge held a second envelope, the one that carried 5 years of silence and guilt. She began reading, her tone careful and measured. In the case of Wilson versus Hogan, as to the paternity of minor child Isaiah Wilson. Miss Wilson closed her eyes. Andre bowed his head. The judge continued, "It has been determined by this court that Mr. Andre..." A pause. Everyone leaned forward. "You are the father." Gasps filled the courtroom. Miss Wilson burst into tears, her hands covering her face. Andre's head dropped into his hands, shoulders shaking not from joy, but from the weight of reality. Mr. Hogan sat frozen, expression blank, the final piece of betrayal landing squarely in his chest. The judge spoke again, gently. "Mr. Andre, the results are conclusive. You are Isaiah's biological father." Andre looked up, tears streaming down his face. He whispered, "I'll take care of him, I promise." Miss Wilson nodded through tears. "That's all I wanted, for him to have his father." Mr. Hogan stood up slowly, his voice calm but full of hurt. "You didn't just betray me," he said quietly. "You broke something that can't be fixed." Andre turned toward him. "I know, and I'll live with that for the rest of my life." For a long time, neither man said another word. They just looked at each other, two friends who'd shared victories, locker rooms, and trust, now standing on opposite sides of truth. After the verdict, the judge spoke to the mother softly. "Miss Wilson, you've carried guilt long enough. It's time to focus on your son's future, not your past." She nodded weakly. "Yes, Your Honor. I just hope one day Isaiah forgives me for the confusion." The judge smiled kindly. Children don't remember pain when they grow up loved. They remember love when it's given, not how it arrived. Those words stayed with her. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed, microphones crowded, reporters shouted questions. Miss Wilson, how do you feel? Mr. Andre, what will you do next? Mr. Hogan, will you ever forgive them? But none of them answered. They walked past in silence, broken people, each carrying their own version of the truth. The following days were quiet. Andre showed up at Miss Wilson's doorstep, holding a small teddy bear and a grocery bag full of snacks. "Hey," he said softly, "can I come in?" She nodded. Isaiah ran to the door, not knowing yet what had changed. "Uncle Andre," he shouted happily. Andre knelt down, hugging him tight. "Hey, champ." For a moment he closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of his son for the first time, not as a friend's child, but as his own. Miss Wilson watched from the hallway, tears falling silently. In that simple moment, after all the chaos, something pure was born again. Over the next few months, Andre tried to make things right. He helped with schoolwork, took Isaiah to the park, attended parent-teacher meetings. He was learning how to be a father late, but determined. Miss Wilson often said, "You can't change the past, but you can rebuild from the truth." And that's what they were doing, rebuilding. Still, it wasn't easy. Mr. Hogan refused to speak to either of them for months. Whenever they ran into each other at events, he'd look away. To him, both of them had died the day that envelope opened. But life has a strange way of finding healing in unexpected places. One evening, during a charity basketball event, fate brought them back together. Andre was there coaching kids. Mr. Hogan walked in late, wearing his old team jacket. They hadn't seen each other in almost a year. The air between them was tense. Andre hesitated, then walked over slowly. "Hey, man." Mr. Hogan turned, his face blank. "Didn't think you show your face around here," he said. Andre sighed. "I came for the kids, not the drama." There was silence for a moment, then Hogan said, "You look different." Andre nodded. "So do you." They both laughed, awkwardly but genuinely, the first time in years. Andre finally said, "Look, I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I've been trying to be a better man, for the boy, for myself." Mr. Hogan looked down. "Yeah, I heard, you're doing good by him." Andre nodded. "He's a good kid. He deserves better than the mess we made." Hogan exhaled slowly. "He looks just like you know that." Andre smiled softly. "Yeah, I see it now too." For a moment, the bitterness melted. They both looked toward the basketball court, where Isaiah was running around with the other kids, laughing. "Man," Hogan said quietly, "we really messed up, didn't we?" Andre nodded. "Yeah, but maybe the kid will turn out better than us." From that day, they weren't friends again, not like before, but the wall between them began to crack. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't need words, it just needs understanding. Miss Wilson later said, "I think that's when healing started, not for them as men, but for the child who would grow up knowing his truth." Months later, Isaiah had his 6th birthday. Andre threw a small party, balloons, cake, music, laughter. Halfway through, Mr. Hogan walked in unexpectedly, holding a gift bag. Everyone froze for a second. Andre stood up, surprised. Hogan said quietly, "Relax, I just came to drop this off." Isaiah ran up to him. "Hey, Coach Hogan." Hogan smiled, kneeling down. "Hey, little man, happy birthday." Andre and Miss Wilson watched as Hogan handed Isaiah a small basketball signed by both of them. Hogan and Andre, the two men who once hated each other. "It's from both of us," Hogan said, "so you remember that you've got more than one man who's got your back." The boy hugged him, not understanding the full weight of that gesture. And in that moment, something changed. Because sometimes, even shattered bonds can be reshaped into something new, not friendship, but peace. Later that night, Miss Wilson whispered to Andre, "I never thought I'd see that day." He smiled, "Me neither." She said softly, "Do you think he'll ever forgive us?" Andre looked at her, then at Isaiah playing in the yard. "He already did," he said. "You see how he smiles? That's forgiveness right there." It took heartbreak, betrayal, and 5 long years of confusion. But in the end, truth did what lies never could. It brought healing. Miss Wilson finally stopped living in fear. Andre learned what fatherhood truly means. And even Mr. Hogan, despite all the pain, walked away stronger, because facing the truth made him free. Sometimes life doesn't give us perfect endings, it gives us real ones. Or Azel Sukun Wahi Hoda Hai, Jab Dil Si Mafi Nikalti Hai. Months turned into years, and life slowly began to rebuild itself around the cracks. The pain never fully disappeared, but it softened like an old scar that no longer hurts when touched. Miss Wilson had changed. She wasn't the same broken woman who once begged for answers in that courtroom. Now she was calm, focused, a mother who had made peace with her past. She often said in interviews, "You don't erase your mistakes, you outgrow them." Andre, too, was a different man. He still played ball, still traveled, but his priorities had shifted. No more late nights or careless choices. Now his evenings were for homework, bedtime stories, and quiet prayers before sleep. He once told a reporter, "I thought winning meant trophies. Now I know it means showing up for your child every day." And little Isaiah, the boy who was once at the center of so much pain, was growing into a bright, kind, funny kid. His laughter filled rooms that were once full of tears. He didn't fully understand the complicated history behind his birth, but he didn't need to. All he knew was that he was loved. One evening, as the sun set orange across the horizon, Andre sat on the porch watching Isaiah ride his bike. Miss Wilson joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled, "He's getting good." She laughed, "He's got your balance, not mine." They sat in silence for a while before she said softly, "You know, sometimes I still think about everything we went through, all the lies, the tests, the tears." Andre looked down, "Me too." She nodded, "But maybe we had to go through it. Maybe that was God's way of teaching us what love really is." Andre exhaled, eyes on Isaiah. Love isn't what happens when everything's perfect. It's what survives after everything's gone wrong. Miss Wilson smiled gently, "Exactly." As Isaiah grew older, he started asking more questions. "Mama, why don't you and Daddy live together?" She would smile and say, "Because love doesn't always mean marriage, baby. Sometimes it means respect." He'd nod, satisfied, and run off again. But inside, Miss Wilson knew those questions would come harder one day. The ones about betrayal, about 2 men, about the court. And she promised herself she would tell him everything when the time was right. For now, it was enough that he knew the truth about who he was. No secrets, no lies, just love. A few years later, something unexpected happened. Mr. Hogan, the man who had once sworn never to speak to them again, reached out. He called Miss Wilson one afternoon. "Hey," he said awkwardly, "I heard Isaiah's doing great. I'm proud of y'all." She was surprised. "Thank you, that means a lot." He paused for a moment, then asked, "Do you think it'd be okay if I came to one of his games sometime?" She smiled. Of course he'd love that. The day Mr. Hogan showed up, the whole crowd turned to look. He stood quietly in the back, hands in his pockets, watching the little boy run down the field. When the game ended, Isaiah spotted him and ran over. "Coach Hogan," he yelled. Hogan smiled, kneeling down. "Hey, champ, you still remember me?" Isaiah laughed. "You taught me how to shoot." Andre walked up slowly, unsure what to say. Hogan extended his hand. "You're doing a good job, man, real good." Andre shook his hand firmly. "Thank you." And just like that, the past didn't vanish, but it loosened its grip. Two men once divided by betrayal now stood together, united by the boy who had unknowingly healed them both. Later that night, Miss Wilson wrote in her journal, "Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget the hurt. It means you choose peace over punishment." She finally felt free. For years, she'd carried the shame of one mistake that turned into a storm. But now she understood something deeper. Sometimes the storm isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to clear your path. One afternoon, the family appeared again on television for a "Where Are They Now?" special. The host asked Miss Wilson, "Do you regret what happened?" She smiled sadly. "I regret the pain, yes, but not the lessons, because those lessons raised my son." Andre added, "People think DNA makes a father, but no test can measure love." The audience applauded softly. Then the host turned to Isaiah, now a confident 10-year-old. "Do you know your story?" she asked. He grinned. "Yeah, Mama told me everything. My daddy's Andre, but I got two coaches who both taught me how to be strong." The room laughed and clapped, and Miss Wilson wiped away tears. After the show, Andre looked at her and said, "He's growing into a good man." She nodded, because he had good men to learn from. Even Mr. Hogan, who had watched from the audience, approached afterward. He hugged Isaiah and whispered, "You've got the best heart, kid. Keep it that way." Isaiah smiled. "Thanks, coach." That small moment, a hug between the man who once loved the mother and the man who fathered her son, said more than any apology could. It said, "We're done fighting." Years passed again. Isaiah turned 16, taller than both his parents, captain of his school team. He played with the same fire his two father figures once shared, strength from one, discipline from the other. One evening, before a big tournament, he stood with both men on either side. Andre placed a hand on his shoulder. "No matter what happens out there, I'm proud of you." Mr. Hogan added, smiling, "Just remember, keep your head up, eyes on the goal, heart steady." Isaiah looked between them and said, "You know, I wouldn't be who I am without both of you." They smiled, the moment full of pride, forgiveness, and closure. After the game, when the stadium lights dimmed and the crowd left, Andre and Hogan stayed behind. They sat quietly on the bleachers, listening to the night. Hogan spoke first. "Crazy how life turned out, huh?" Andre chuckled. "Yeah, we lost a lot back then, but maybe we gained more than we knew." Hogan nodded. "You're right, I got my peace back. Took me years, but I did." They shared a quiet laugh, not as teammates, not as enemies, but as men who had finally made peace with their past. Meanwhile, Miss Wilson watched from the sidelines, smiling softly. Her family wasn't perfect. It was patched together by truth and forgiveness, but it was real. And that, she realized, was all that mattered. She thought back to the courtroom years ago. The shouting, the tears, the DNA envelopes. All that pain had led here, to healing, to unity, to a child surrounded by love. She whispered to herself, It was never about who the father was. It was about becoming the kind of people a child could be proud of. Years later, when Isaiah graduated, both men stood side by side, clapping as he walked across the stage. Miss Wilson wiped tears from her eyes, whispering, "We did it." Andre leaned in and said, "No, you did it. You held everything together." She shook her head. "No, we all did in our own way." After the ceremony, Isaiah pulled both of them into a hug. "Thank you," he said, "for loving me enough to tell me the truth." The final chapter of their story wasn't one of shame, it was one of strength. Andre continued to mentor young athletes, teaching them not just how to play, but how to live honestly. Mr. Hogan opened a youth center, focusing on helping kids who grew up without fathers. Miss Wilson wrote a small book about her journey, The Game of Truth. It wasn't about fame, it was about forgiveness. She wrote, "You can survive lies, you can survive heartbreak, but you can only heal when you stop hiding from the truth." One quote from her book became famous: "DNA doesn't raise children, courage does." That line echoed the heart of their story. Years later, when she was asked if she would change anything, Miss Wilson smiled and said, "No, because if it all hadn't happened, my son wouldn't have learned what honesty means. He wouldn't have known that forgiveness is stronger than anger." And maybe that's what this story was truly about. Not betrayal, not revenge, not proof, but growth. Because sometimes, it's not the test results that matter. It's what you do with the truth once you finally have it. Isaiah, now a man, once said in an interview, "My story started with lies, but it was love that finished it." Those words captured everything his parents had fought for: the pain, the redemption, and the beauty of moving forward. Because in the end, love doesn't erase mistakes, it transforms them. And truth, no matter how late it arrives, always sets the heart free. DNA Justice Stories, where truth may break hearts, but it also rebuilds them.